approached a stranger near the dairy aisle, ready to flex his authority. What he didn't realize was that this suspicious man was a federal agent, seconds away from closing a months-long investigation. The air inside Hensley's Market had that late afternoon heaviness, warm air clinging to cold tile floors. People trying to get in and out before dinner. Officer Trent Bayless wasn't shopping. He was there because he wanted to grab a protein and maybe a six-pack before heading home. Nothing official, no calls came in. He was still in uniform though, and in his head that meant always being on duty. As he moved past the bakery, something caught his attention. A man stood near the dairy case. Tall, early 40s maybe. Athletic build, dark windbreaker zipped halfway up. Phone in hand, he wasn't pushing a cart. He wasn't picking anything up. He was just watching. His eyes tracked a few shoppers. Nothing dramatic, just a glance here and there. Then he made brief eye contact with Bayless. A flicker, then turned back to the yogurt. That was all Bayless needed. He angled his walk straight toward the man, skipping any sense of casual approach. Chest puffed slightly, steps just loud enough. He stopped a little too close, just beside the butter you with store security. Bayless asked, his tone already implying suspicion. The man looked up slowly, calm. Not irritated, not smug. Just assessing, no. He replied evenly. Bayless didn't like that. Too short, too sure of himself. You've been watching people a little too long to just be here shopping. You planning to pay for anything? The man raised an eyebrow, not in defiance, more like confusion. Then he slipped his phone into his back pocket. Sir, I'm in the middle of something, he said, voice quiet. You're interfering. Interfering with what? Bayless fired back. You're not law enforcement. I don't see a badge. You're not store staff. And I don't like being lied to. Bayless wasn't yelling, but his voice had that sharpness that cuts through a grocery store. A few heads turned. The woman stacking apples near the entrance slowed her movements. A kid in line for the deli whispered to his mom. A manager behind the customer service counter took a step but forward. Didn't act. The man kept his hands visible. Calm, still too calm. Bayless thought, my name is Deshaun Rucker. The man said, special agent. FBI badge is in my back pocket. I'm not here to talk to you. Bayless didn't blink. He hated being told he was wrong. Especially this directly. Let me see the badge, he said, standing even taller now. Hand drifting toward his own belt. Rucker moved slowly, no sudden gestures. He pulled out the badge, flipped it open. Bayless barely looked at the ID inside before waving it off. Anybody can carry a fake badge, Bayless said. You think you're the first guy who tried that? Rucker locked eyes with him. Now still no anger, but the silence got heavier. You need to back up, Rucker said. You're interfering with a federal surveillance operation. You're about to blow a case we've been building for 6 months. Bayless scoffed. Then you should have let someone know. Local law enforcement was gone. A guy lurking around the yogurt aisle, looking suspicious. I don't owe you notification. Rocco replied, this is federal jurisdiction. Now step back. Bayless felt it, eyes on him. A woman across the aisle held her phone angled slightly toward them, recording. Another shopper whispered to someone behind the produce rack. People weren't walking by anymore. They were slowing down, watching, judging, and then like clockwork. Bayless doubled down. If you don't have something with a signature or someone I can call, I'm detaining you right here. Rucker didn't move. He didn't blink. He didn't touch his badge again. You really want to go that route? He asked. Bayless didn't answer. He just stood there, jaw tight. Energy buzzing, but just as it looked like things might tip over, someone else entered the aisle. Someone Bayless hadn't seen coming. She was shorter than Rucker, sharp-eyed, hair pulled into a tight twist. Dressed in a slate gray sweater and dark jeans. That didn't draw attention, but her presence hit like a bucket of cold water. Agent Sienna Corbin didn't say a word right away. She simply stepped between Bayless and Rucker with the ease of someone used to high-stakes environments. Bayless blinked. She hadn't been there a second ago. Corbin's tone was quiet but surgical. "Officer, you're interfering with a federal operation. You need to take a step back." Bayless held his ground. "And you are." She opened her badge folder and held it at chest level. "Special Agent Corbin, I'm Rocker's partner. You've compromised surveillance." He let out a short laugh that didn't feel natural. "To people claiming to be FBI, no coordination with local PD, no visible suspect. You expect me to believe you're both just grocery shopping for justice?" Corbin's eyes didn't leave him. "No, officer. We expect you to exercise basic protocol and professionalism." Bayless ignored the sting. He pointed at Rocker. He was just standing there watching folks. "No cart, no list." Looked like he was casing the place. "You profile all men buying yogurt." Corbin shot back. "That landed?" A teenager filming from behind a soda display snorted. Bayless turned slightly, noticing the quiet wall of phones now raised in his direction. The people weren't shouting, but they were recording. That felt worse. Rucker kept still. "We're tracking someone who's been using stolen benefits to launder EBT funds across state lines. She was supposed to meet a contact here. Now she's probably long gone." Bayless narrowed his eyes. "And you didn't think to notify local authorities?" "We don't telegraph live surveillance," Corbin replied. "It's called containment." "Until you showed up with your mouth and your badge swinging." That one caught him square. He looked around, eyes darting. Noticing more shoppers frozen mid-errand. A dad holding a baby pack of diapers. A cashier leaning on her register. It wasn't chaos, it was worse tension. Heavy, real, silent tension. "I was doing my job," Bayless said defensively. "No, you weren't." Rucker finally spoke again. "You were acting on your own judgment. Not a call, not a report. Just a hunch." Bayless's lip twitched. "I had a right to question." "No one's saying you couldn't ask a question." Corbin cut in. "It's how you did it. You went in looking for a problem." Bayless felt it now, heat crawling up his neck. He wasn't used to being corrected in public, especially not by someone with command in her voice, but there was something else under the surface. A flicker of recognition that maybe, just maybe, he'd misjudged this entire thing. "Even if you are FBI," Bayless said, reaching for something to hold on to, "this still isn't how it's done." Corbin took a breath. "We're not going to debate tactics with someone who interrupted a federal tale without cause." Behind them, a store manager, mid-50s, red polo shirt, thinning hair, walked up cautiously. "Everything all right here?" he asked, eyes bouncing between uniforms and badges. "We're good," Rocco said calmly. "No need for you to get involved further." Bayless turned to the manager. "They say they're FBI, you vouch for that?" The manager raised his palms slightly. "I don't know who anyone is, but I know she came in before you. I saw her near the pharmacy, texting and walking like she belonged. He was here earlier, no trouble. Didn't buy anything but didn't cause any?" That didn't help Bayless feel better. He shifted on his heels. "So, where's this suspect of yours?" he asked, trying to regain control. Corbin turned, slightly scanning the crowd. "Gone thanks to you." Bayless wanted to say more, wanted to challenge that, but the silence beat him to it. From behind, someone muttered. He just couldn't stand seeing a confident brother standing still. Bayless spun around, trying to identify the voice, but nobody claimed it. The crowd had changed. What had started as subtle glances was now quiet. Judgment phones pointed down. Not because people were done recording, but because the story had already been told. He turned back to Rucker and Corbin, his jaw locked. "I want names, full names. I'll file a report, you're welcome to." Rucker replied, expression still unreadable. "We'll be doing the same," but even as Bayless started to back away, reality was already crashing through. Their suspect was gone, and he was the reason why. Bayless stepped back, but not far. Just enough to make it look like he was giving space, while still hovering. His pride had taken a hit. And instead of letting it settle, he clung to authority like a safety rope. His hand rested on his duty belt, not in a threatening way, but not casual either. He cleared his throat. "Let's be real for a second," he said. "You to show up in street clothes. No heads up to local law enforcement, and now you want to act like I'm the problem. That's a joke." Corbin turned toward Rocker. But it was Rocker who answered. You made yourself the problem the second you assumed instead of asked, he said. You didn't approach with curiosity. You walked in like you were ready for a takedown. Bayless rolled his eyes. Oh please. You think this is about you personally? Roca didn't flinch. No. I think it's about the way you operate. You saw a guy you didn't like the look of and you moved in. No crime, no complaint. Just your own suspicion. You act like that's not part of the job. Bayless snapped. Corbin crossed her arms. Not when it's built on ego and assumptions. That's not policing, that's interference. The nearby shoppers were still lingering, pretending to shop but clearly tuned in. A young woman by the cheese samples was whispering to a guy in sweats, and neither of them moved an inch toward the exit. The tension had shifted now. It was embarrassment. Bales is specifically hanging in the air, trying to salvage his footing. Bayless took out his notepad. Name again, he said. Looking at Roca? Special Agent Deshaun Rucker out of the Charlotte field office. You want my supervisor's name too? Bayless scribbled. And you? He asked Corbin, not looking up. Special Agent Sienna Corbin, same field office. You might want to spell it right when you write your report. Bayless muttered something under his breath as he wrote, then finally looked up. I've seen feds work before. You don't blend and you don't coordinate. And now you're telling me I tanked your big operation. So, what now, you gonna go cry to the bureau? Rucker didn't blink. What happens next depends on your department. Conduct your record. But trust me, it's not going away. Bayless straightened up. You threatening me now? No, Corbin said quickly. But you made choices in front of a room full of witnesses. Phones don't lie, even if some of them delete the footage. Someone won't. Bayless's face twitched. I was trying to prevent a crime, and in doing so, Rucker replied. You helped one walk out the door. Corbin stepped forward, lowering her voice. We've been tracking Trina Delmore across 3 states. She's been fronting a fake produce supplier to launder EBT funds. Hundreds of thousands in fraudulent benefits turned into clean cash. She's been slippery. Today we had her. We were 5 minutes from contact. Bayless opened his mouth to speak, then stopped. His hand fell from his belt. His eyes flicked toward the entrance. The red polo store manager had stepped back. A security guard leaned against a pillar, watching everything unfold, but clearly unwilling to intervene. We kept things quiet, because that's how these cases work, Rocker said. When you walk up loud, escalate and make assumptions, you don't just embarrass yourself, you damage real investigations, people's livelihoods, federal resources. Bayless tried to find something, some angle that would shift the tone. You could have just shown the badge when I asked. I did, Roca replied. You hesitated. I moved slowly for safety. You're a cop, you know why. Bayless didn't respond to that. The silence stretched again. Corbin stepped back beside Roca. You're going to have to write this up. We will too, but I suggest you leave the part out where you tried to detain a federal agent mid-surveillance based on your gut. From the back of the store, a young man holding a box of cereal muttered, Bro got schooled right in front of the cheese. Someone else laughed, soft, but enough to cut through the silence. Bayless's ears burned. His posture sank a little, though he tried to mask it. I'm done here, he said stiffly, closing his notebook and turning on his heel. But as he walked off toward the automatic doors, Rucker's next words followed him, and they weren't for Bayless. They were for the case that had just slipped through their fingers. Rucker exhaled through his nose, slow and steady, but his jaw clenched. Corbin watched Bayless walk toward the exit, shoulders rigid, hands twitching like he was still fighting to save face. But the damage had been done. He's lucky we kept our voices down, Rucker muttered. Could have turned into a full-blown incident if we didn't keep it measured. Corbin scanned the store again. Most people had gone back to shopping, but the atmosphere was different now. That low-level hum of retail noise had shifted into something quieter, more careful. Nobody made eye contact. They all knew something had gone sideways, even if they didn't know the full story. Corbin tapped her earpiece, her voice low. Control, this is Delta 6. Surveillance was compromised. Subject likely exited during local interference. A brief pause. Copy. Delta 6 confirming exit through north entrance 10 minutes ago. Visual lost at parking lot. Corbin swore under her breath. Rucker crossed his arms. Trina's smart. She knew we were watching, just not from where, but once she saw the uniform go in hard, she'd bolt. They stood still for a moment, letting the weight of it settle. Months of setup paperwork. Sting prep contacts in 3 cities. Trina Delmore had finally agreed to a face-to-face drop. Everything had lined up until a rookie mistake by someone who wasn't even part of the operation dismantled it in 30 seconds. Rucker turned to Corbin. I want a call with Shields today. I'm not letting this get swept under a rug. She's expecting it, Corbin replied. Already left a voice note. Told her we'd report on scene breakdown and timeline. Rucker nodded, jaw tight. Did the store cameras catch her? I'm sure they did. Doesn't help much if she's already out of the lot with burner plates. Rucker's hands curled into fists, then relaxed again. From the other side of the store, a young woman with a badge on her lanyard approached. Not law enforcement. Store security, Excuse me, agents. Corbin turned. Yes. I'm Dana, assistant security lead. I've been watching the footage from earlier. Your suspect was at register 9, paid cash. Left with a green bag. Maybe produce. She ducked when the officer came into frame. Rucker stepped closer. You have the footage? I pulled the copy already, Dana said, holding up a small USB drive. Her hand was shaking slightly. Thank you, Corbin said. Taking it. Send your manager. Our contact at the Charlotte field office will follow up. Dana nodded quickly and backed away. As she left, Corbin gave Rucker a look. She's sharp. She paid attention. That alone puts her above Bayless. Rucker paced a short distance, rubbing the bridge of his nose. You good? Corbin asked. No, he said, but I will be. She didn't press further. I was watching the register line the whole time. Rucker said. I had eyes on Trina. She wasn't twitchy. She wasn't clocking me. Not until he walked up on you like he owned the place. Rucker shook his head slowly. We spend all this time trying to move quiet, blend and do it by the book. And then a guy with a badge and a chip on his shoulder barrels through like it's a traffic stop. You didn't lose it. Corbin reminded him. You didn't escalate. I wanted to. I know. But you didn't. That's what matters. Rucker exhaled again. She was right there. Corbin didn't respond. She didn't need to. It wasn't the first time they'd watched something fall apart at the last second, but this one stung more. This one wasn't bad intel or a tip that went cold. This was someone else's mistake interfering with their hard work. Rucker finally said, we need to regroup. Corbin agreed. Let's head to the car. Debrief while it's fresh. We'll patch Shields in. From there they began walking slowly toward the exit, passing the cooler section where this all began. Rucker's eyes drifted toward the butter shelf, the spot where Bayless first blocked him. I could see it in his face. He murmured he didn't come over to ask anything. He came to confirm what he already believed. Corbin didn't answer that either. What could she say? It was true. But as they pushed through the sliding doors and stepped into the fading daylight, the guilt of a missed call wasn't the only thing hanging between them. There was the question neither wanted to say out loud. Would this happen again the next time? They tried to do their jobs quietly. They sat in silence for a moment inside the unmarked navy blue SUV parked a rows from the store entrance. The windows were tinted, the dashboard quiet. It was the kind of silence that didn't need to be filled. Not yet. Rucker stared out toward the storefront, arms resting on his thighs while Corbin typed quickly on her tablet, logging the incident. He finally broke the silence. We started tracking her in Birmingham. Remember that gas station off 3rd Avenue North? Had the kids in the back seat. Looked like she hadn't slept in a week. Corbin nodded, and she still spotted the camera in the pump cover. Tapped the kid's shoulder and told him to duck. She's no amateur. She's not reckless either. She only surfaces when she has a new beer, a new method to wash the money. Corbin paused her typing. This was her 3rd sighting in as many weeks. Alabama then Tallahassee. Now here she was moving faster. That's what worried me, Rocker said. She was getting bolder, meeting face to face. That's not her usual pattern. Maybe she got desperate, or maybe she thought we were losing her. Corbin turned the tablet so he could see the paused surveillance image from the store's camera feed showed Trina standing in front of Register 9, wearing a rust orange hoodie and black leggings, head down, her left foot half turned like she was already anticipating movement. You see that, Corbin said, pointing. She clocked him the second he entered the store. Didn't even glance at us, just saw a uniform? Figured something was off and made a move. Rocker nodded. She's been inside the system before. That reaction was trained. A short silence fell again and Corbin returned to her notes. She was never supposed to make it past the parking lot. Rucker said, we had traffic cams prepped. Plate scanners along all 3 exits. We had a clean ID on the burner phone she used to confirm the meet. Corbin frowned, and we got clipped by a patrol officer on snack run. They let that sting hang in the air. It wasn't just about Trina. It was about the hours, the night scanning footage. The risk they took, running field work in borrowed clothes and rental cars. The pressure from DC to deliver something substantial before the fiscal review. All of that undone in seconds by someone acting off instinct. Instead of information. You know what the kicker is? Rucker asked, voice low. He won't even remember her face. He came in so locked on me, she became a ghost in the aisle. Corbin didn't respond, but her face said enough. The dashboard chimed. Rucker pressed the button. Agent Roca, go ahead. A crackled voice came through. Agent Shields on the line. Conference, and when ready, he looked at Corbin. She nodded once. Patch her through. A second later, Special Agent Miriam Shields' voice filled the cabin. Clear, firm, professional. Deshaun Sienna, and us got the early report. Sounds like we lost her, confirmed, Corbin said. Interference from local law enforcement. Uniformed officer engaged Deshaun during live surveillance. Broke cover. Suspect exited store mid-distraction. Shields didn't ask for clarification. She knew how these things went. Were either of you harmed? No. Rocker said, but the officer was confrontational. Tried to detain me after I presented my badge. Sienna had to step in. A pause. Name's Trent Bayless. Corbin replied, badge number logged. We've got internal footage. Store security pulled helpful material too. Another pause, then Shields' voice dropped into that even, tempered tone Roker recognized. I'll be speaking with Fayette County Sheriff's Office tonight. They're going to want a report. Be factual, be direct. No emotion, already working on it, Corbin said. Shields added, we'll reassign surveillance to the Tallahassee office. In case Trina doubles back, you to head back to base. No tail, no stops. Copy that, Rucker said. Shields didn't offer encouragement or comfort. She didn't need to. She knew what this meant for them. The line clicked off. Corbin closed the tablet and leaned back in her seat. Well, that's that. But Rucker wasn't done, not mentally. He was still in that store, standing beside the butter, trying to explain himself to someone who didn't want to listen. She's not done, he said quietly. Trina, she's going to surface again. Maybe sooner than they think. I know, but even as they sat in the calm of the SUV, the truth sat heavier than anything Shields had said. Because the damage wasn't just about one missed target. It was about knowing this wasn't an accident. And it could happen again tomorrow. Trina Delmore didn't run. That was what made her so hard to track. She moved like a regular shopper, even when the plan changed. She paid in cash, used bags from other stores to blend in, and kept her head down, but not low enough to look suspicious. Just enough to avoid recognition. It wasn't a scramble, it was a strategy. She'd parked 3 aisles over from the front entrance, closer to a nail salon than the grocery store itself. That morning, she swapped out her tags at a self-serve car wash in Lumberton. Just over an hour south. She didn't need speed. She needed silence. By the time Agent Rocker was being questioned in the dairy aisle, Trina was already halfway to her car. She didn't break stride when she saw the patrol vehicle in the lot. She didn't look back when the store's chime echoed behind her. She slid into the driver's seat, glanced once in the rearview, and pulled away like she'd forgotten milk at home. Back inside the store, Rucker had felt it in his gut. The moment the officer blocked him, he knew this was going to cost them. Timeline matches. Corbin said, eyes on her tablet again. Bayless entered at 5:12. Trina paid out at 5:14. Was out the doors by 5:16. Gone before you could even reach for your ID. Rucker looked away, annoyed not at her. At himself. I hesitated. He muttered, not with him. With her I should have tagged her sooner. You had her, we both did. You didn't blink. I trusted the timeline too much. Corbin tapped the screen. She deviated, but not by much. Still kept the meat short. Probably realized something was off the second Bayless walked in. Rucker's voice dropped. She saw the uniform. Didn't matter that it wasn't aimed at her. She saw heat and got out. He shifted in his seat. The store parking lot was quiet now. A woman walked by pushing a stroller. A man loaded groceries into the trunk of a silver Camry. Everyday stuff, but just hours ago. The scene had been something else entirely, an operation balanced on a razor's edge. Let me ask you something, Rucker said. Suddenly Corbin looked up. You think if I look like someone else, he still would have stopped me? She didn't answer right away. I think, she said carefully, that he didn't see what he should have seen. He saw a guy standing still. Not a badge, not a mission. Just someone he didn't think belonged there. Rucker nodded slowly. You handled it. She added, I'm tired of handling it. He said, and the words sat heavy between them. Corbin didn't try to solve that. Instead, she flipped to the next page of her report and started logging vehicle data for Trina. Make, model, plate variations, last known locations. The grind of the job kept moving, even when morale didn't. Her burner pinged off a tower west of Florence an hour ago. She said, heading south. Might be pushing toward Charleston or bluffing. Rucker replied, she could be switching cars again. They both knew it didn't matter in this moment. They weren't in pursuit, they weren't in range. The net they'd set had been torn open, and Trina, for all her quiet skill, had only needed one thing to slip through: distraction. Outside, a police cruiser rolled slowly through the lot. Different department, nothing urgent. Just presence. Rucker tracked it until it passed. I'm thinking about filing a complaint, he said suddenly. You should, Corbin said. Not out of spite, out of necessity. I'm not even mad at the badge, he added. I'm mad at the way he used it. Like a hammer looking for a nail. Corbin said without looking up. Rucker gave a dry laugh. Exactly. She finally set the tablet down. We'll recover, she said. She slip up again, they always do. He nodded, but he wasn't convinced. It's not about recovery, it's about what we normalize. If guys like Bayless get to charge in, screw up, and walk away without understanding the damage they cause. He trailed off. Corbin waited. Then finished it for him. Then it keeps happening. But before either of them could say another word, Rucker's phone buzzed with a new alert. Trina's burner had just pinged again, this time from a truck stop 90 miles away, and it wasn't heading south anymore. The sun had dipped lower now, casting long shadows across the parking lot. Rucker stood outside the SUV, leaning against the passenger door, arms folded, the tension still riding his shoulders. Corbin paced a few feet away, on her second call to the Charleston office, coordinating a potential handoff. They were resetting, pivoting. But the sting of the day hadn't dulled. He spotted him before he heard the voice. Officer Trent Bayless, walking back toward them from the side of the building alone. No backup, no swagger. This time his gait was slower, and his eyes flicked toward the ground every few steps. Rucker stood upright, not moving forward, but not backing away either. Corbin clocked him too, and ended the call quickly. Bayless stopped a few feet from them. Look, he said, voice quieter than before. I'm not here to argue. Corbin crossed her arms. Then don't. Bayless shifted his weight awkwardly. I didn't know, I didn't mean to interfere. You didn't ask, Rucker replied. Tone steady. You assumed. Bayless rubbed the back of his neck. I've been on the force 7 years. I've seen stuff. I've made stops that turned out to be right, even when they didn't look right at first. Corbin snapped back, and how many of those didn't look right? Calls started with someone who looked like him. Bayless flinched, but didn't deny it. Rucker stepped in. You saw someone standing still, not causing trouble, not breaking a law. And your first move was confrontation, not conversation. Bayless looked down. It didn't feel right. Him just watching people. I was working. Rucker said in that moment. I was focused. My job is to watch. You didn't look like law enforcement. Bayless muttered. That's the point. Corbin cut in. We're not supposed to. It's surveillance. Blending in is part of the job. Bayless let out a breath. I didn't think I reacted. Rucker walked a step closer. And that reaction. It cost us a suspect we've been tracking for over 6 months. She's not just stealing government benefits. She's part of a larger operation that preys on vulnerable communities. Families trying to make ends meet, while she launders stolen EBT into cash. And she walked because you couldn't stop yourself from playing the hero. Bayless winced. You think I was trying to be a hero? No, Rucker said. I think you were trying to be right. That hit deeper than Bayless expected. He looked away, hands on his hips, chest rising and falling. Corbin softened just a hair. You didn't know. We get that. But the difference is you weren't open to knowing. You didn't leave space for that. Bayless nodded slowly. You're right. They let the silence linger for a beat. I've got to report the incident. Bayless added. Supervisor called me. Wants a full written account. I'll include everything. Full names, timeline. My part in it too? Corbin raised an eyebrow. You planning to leave anything out? No, I'll tell it straight. I messed up. Rucker looked at him carefully, then asked. You know what really bothered me the most? Bayless shook his head. You didn't ask why I was there. You didn't ask what I was doing. You jumped to what I looked like. You saw me and assumed control. I didn't see an agent. Bayless said. Honestly, no. Roca said you saw a threat and I wasn't. One that landed harder than Bayless was ready for. He nodded again, this time slower. I've got work to do, he said. With myself, I mean. You've got a badge? Corbin replied. What you do with it after this. That matters more than what happened here today. Bayless looked up. I hear that. He turned to leave but stopped. For what it's worth, thanks for not escalating. Either of you, you kept it level. I didn't deserve that, no. Rucker agreed, but we gave it anyway. Bayless didn't reply. He just walked off. This time not looking around to see who was watching, but as Rucker turned back toward the car, the alert from earlier buzzed again. Trina's burner had pinged a second time, not far from where they sat, and suddenly the day wasn't over just yet. The alert blinked on Rucker's screen, urgent but quiet, like a tap on the shoulder instead of a scream in the ear. Second ping, he muttered. Truck stop off Highway 74. 22 minutes from here. Corbin was already pulling the GPS up. Could be her, could be the beer. Could be a setup. We don't sit on it. Rucker said, slipping into the driver's seat. We moved. They didn't speak much as the SUV pulled out of the lot. Rucker drove with precision, but not speed. He kept it legal focused. Corbin prepped gear from the passenger seat. Camera, pen, external mic backup, badge folder. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was calculated, all attention. No ego. As they turned onto the on-ramp, Corbin's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered with a clipped Corbin. The voice on the other end belonged to Captain Terrence Ruhlman, Bayless's supervisor, measured. Older, with the tone of someone who'd seen enough to speak plainly. I just spoke with Officer Bayless. He said, I understand there was an incident. That's putting it lightly. Corbin said. Mind giving me your version before I get it from the report? Corbin summarized the encounter, keeping her voice professional. Rucker kept his eyes on the road, listening without reacting. When Corbin reached the part about the suspect walking out during the confrontation, she paused. We had a 6-month case lined up, Captain. she said, and one poorly timed intervention blew the window wide open. Captain Ruhlman didn't argue. Bayless is filling out a full report tonight, he said, and I've already started an internal file. Doesn't mean he's getting thrown under a bus, but it does mean we're not pretending this didn't happen. Rucker finally spoke. We're not looking for someone to lose their job. We're looking for accountability. Ruhlman was quiet for a moment. You'd have any kind of paper trail on this suspect. She's been on the radar for interstate benefit laundering since 2019. Corbin said operates under 5 aliases. Moves quiet. We've tracked her from Birmingham to Florida. Today was the first time she made contact at a fixed location. That makes this even worse, Ruhlman admitted. All right, let me do my part. Corbin ended the call. No goodbyes needed. I didn't expect him to own up. Rucker said. Bayless no. His captain. Maybe that's the shift. Corbin replied. Some of them are starting to understand. It's not about blame, it's about responsibility. Rucker gripped the wheel tighter. Tired of watching us have to stay calm when someone else blows through every line. Corbin leaned back slightly. You think Bayless learns from this? I don't know, Rucker said. Depends what he tells himself when no one's listening. As they neared the turnoff for the truck stop, Corbin brought up the satellite overlay. The location was quiet, a handful of parked semis. A small diner attached to the fuel station. The ping had come from a prepaid phone, likely the same burner Trina had used earlier. Want to go in quiet or flash the badge? Corbin asked. Quiet. Rucker said. We lost once today because someone came in loud. They parked off to the side near a row of vending machines. Corbin adjusted her jacket and placed the mic in her collar. Rucker placed the small camera pin on his shirt and pulled a baseball cap low over his eyes. As they stepped out of the vehicle, a breeze lifted the scent of diesel and fryer grease. The hum of a generator behind the building rattled faintly. A man with a trucker's tan smoked near the back door, but didn't look up. Check in first? Corbin asked. Rucker nodded. See who's inside. If she's here, we don't make the grab, we confirm ID. Then, back out. They entered the diner side of the stop, blinking slightly at the shift in light yellow tile floors. Brown vinyl booths, a few tired customers sipping coffee or pecking at half-eaten sandwiches. The woman behind the counter looked up with vague interest, then returned to her receipt pile. Corbin scanned the booths. No sign of Trina. Then Rucker's phone buzzed again. Same burner, new ping. She's not here, he said. She pinged again. 5 miles east. Small motel. Corbin raised her eyebrows. She's on the move. She's testing us. Rucker muttered, dropping digital breadcrumbs or setting a trap. But neither of them hesitated, because even if it was bait, they couldn't afford to let her vanish a second time. 5 miles felt longer than it should have. The road to the East Crest Motel curved along a half-developed stretch of Route 217, flanked by patchy construction zones and rusting roadside billboards. Corbin stared out the window, her mind running through potential setups. Backup cars, burner phones, cash handoffs. Trina was too smart to move without a reason. If she was still leaving digital traces, she had a plan. Rucker's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. As they approached the low, rectangular building, the motel sign flickered, half-lit in the early evening light, missing the T in Motel 5. Doors were visible from the front lot, 1 truck to sedans. Nothing that screamed hot drop, but nothing clean either. We circle? Corbin asked. We log plates first, Rucker replied, already tapping photos into his phone. Then we check the front desk if anyone's working it. They parked across the street, angled between 2 empty vending machine bays. Corbin took a slow breath, then turned toward him. You feel it? He nodded. She's nearby. I know it. They got out. Without speaking further, Rucker scanned the lot, while Corbin moved toward the front office window. Through the glass, a young guy sat watching a reality show on a portable screen. No security monitor, no clipboard in sight. Corbin tapped on the glass. He looked up slowly, then pushed the door open. Need a room? He asked. Barely interested. No, she said, showing her badge. Need a guest list. Room 3. Who's in it? The clerk blinked. I don't. Hold on, he fumbled under the desk, pulled up a cheap ledger book and flipped pages. Room 3 book to a Tracy Bynum. He mumbled time of check in an hour ago. Corbin shot a glance to Rocker. Description didn't see her. Some guy checked in, said it was for his girl. Paid cash. Corbin held back a sigh. You got cameras not working? Of course. They stepped out into the parking lot again. The door to room 3 was shut. Curtains drawn, no sound. Could be her, Rucker said. Could be Bay. Corbin adjusted her mic and stood still. Eyes locked on the door. If it's her, she's watching us already. Let's not knock. Agreed. They retreated back to the SUV. From there they ran vehicle data on the cars nearby. One plate bounced back with a temporary tag, issued 2 weeks ago in Alabama. No owner listed. She's here, Rocker said, voice low. But if she's running this hard, it's bigger than just her and a few fake vendors, Corbin replied. That was the thought they'd both been circling since the grocery store. Back in the vehicle, Rucker sent the footage from the grocery store confrontation to their internal affairs team, not out of spite, out of necessity. The truth was, Bayless's interference didn't just blow an arrest. It had exposed a flaw in how federal and local departments intersect, or failed to. Trina had counted on it. Played. The noise slipped out the back when everyone else was busy posturing. You remember Montgomery? Rucker asked. Suddenly Corbin looked over. Yeah. The job site sting officer jumped the fence before the buy went down, and we lost the whole crew again. Corbin nodded. That was almost 2 years ago. And this feels the same. They didn't talk for a minute. Rocco stared through the windshield at room 3. She knows how we operate, he said. She doesn't just run, she reacts. She builds her steps around our patterns. She's watching law enforcement habits in real time, Corbin added. It's why she knew Bayless wasn't there for her, but was still a threat. It all made a twisted kind of sense. Trina wasn't just another mid-tier fraud artist. She was adapting, evolving, and now she was practically leading them by the nose. We can't make a move on room 3 without warrant, Corbin said, and we can't confirm it's her unless we get eyes. Rucker thought for a long moment. Let's wait 30 minutes. If no movement, we log the scene and push it upstairs. Corbin agreed. She's not done. But neither are we. They watched the motel in silence. 2 agents in an SUV, thinking less about tonight and more about the system that kept breaking itself from the inside out, because the truth was clear now. Trina didn't just slip through cracks. She used them the next morning. A video surfaced online. It was only 28 seconds long, shot vertically with shaky hands and poor audio. But it didn't need to be cinematic. It told the story loud enough. In the clip, Officer Trent Bayless stands face to face with Special Agent Deshaun Rocker, their voices measured but tense. Rucker doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't curse. He doesn't flinch. He simply stands still and speaks calmly, while a uniformed officer challenges his authority. In the middle of a grocery store aisle, near the butter and eggs, the caption read, "This man taught a cop more with silence than some folks do with a badge." By noon, the clip had crossed 60,000 views. The comments came in fast. Why is it always like this? He's lucky it didn't turn deadly. The brother kept his cool. That's strength. We need to talk about this type of behavior more often. In a quiet office downtown, Captain Ruhlman sat in front of the clip on repeat, face flat, expression unreadable. He'd already read Bayless's report. He'd already reviewed the logs. And now, watching this fragment of real-time humiliation, shared across the internet, he understood exactly what it meant. Not just bad optics, not just a mistake. A rupture. He made a call to internal affairs. By 12:14 pimp. Across the city, Rucker sat at his desk, sipping lukewarm coffee while writing his formal statement. His screen was open to a photo still of Trina Delmore's burner ping. He was staring at it, but his thoughts were elsewhere. Corbin stepped into the office. "Clip's making the rounds," she said. setting a flash drive on his desk. Local news picked it up. You're a meme now. Rucker didn't smile. You good? She asked. Yeah. He said, I just wish it hadn't happened in the first place. Corbin pulled up a chair. We did our job. Quiet, legal, measured. We didn't push, we didn't overstep. That's what people needed to see, especially now. Rucker nodded. Still lost the target. We'll get her. They sat in silence for a moment. Not just colleagues now, not just agents. They were witnesses again to something that had become far too routine. Rucker finally asked, You think Bale is changes after this? I don't know, Corbin said. But I think he saw himself clearly for once. That's more than most ever get. They turned back to their screens. Later, that week, Trina Delmore's burner pinged again in Florence, South Carolina. Local agents took over the trail. A sting was rebuilt quietly, carefully. Rucker and Corbin weren't on that takedown, but their fingerprints were all over the setup. The files they'd collected, the footage Donna from the grocery store had saved, the license plate logs, the surveillance angles. They all played a role. When Trina was finally arrested, she had for IDs 3 burner phones and a laptop full of fraudulent vendor applications. Her entire operation, disguised as a farm produce supplier, had been washing over $400,000 through fake EBT transactions. She never saw Rucker again, but he read the arrest report like it was unfinished business. Finally typed up. Bayless, meanwhile, completed his disciplinary training and was reassigned to administrative duty. For the time being, no suspension, no demotion, but a long conversation with the department psychologist and an obligation to finish 3 months of de-escalation coursework. Nobody called it justice, but it was something. The clip would fade as they all do another entry in a growing archive of incidents people knew were real, but wished weren't so frequent. Still, something shifted. Not in the headlines, but in the aisles, where people stop and look just a little longer. Where silence feels like a statement, where a calm voice can cut through a badge's weight like paper. In the end, the real story wasn't about Trina's escape or Bayless's misstep. It was about a moment, a pause in the middle of a grocery store, when judgment met professionalism and lost. It was about the power of restraint. The kind that doesn't come with flashing lights, but with knowing who you are even when someone else doesn't. And that's a lesson worth remembering. Because every aisle's a mirror, and sooner or later we all have to look. If this story moved you, made you think, or reminded you of something that needs to change, hit subscribe. These stories aren't fiction. They're lived, and the more we talk about them, the less likely we are to repeat them.